Welcome to the Education Podcast, where it's all about helping people and organizations unleash their greatness. This Education Podcast features lively discussions.
When they share it, you see that they're beginning to feel empowered.
My heart, it's full of pride for me to be at Maitai Samoa.
You don't necessarily need a degree these days. There's so many pathways to success.
Welcome to this Education Podcast. Welcome to the Education Podcast, where it's all about helping you unleash your greatness, both personally and professionally. Today's episode is all about breaking free from the opinions and judgments and negativity that can hold us back from living our best lives. Our guest is an incredible individual with a truly inspiring story. She's a nurse educator, a bodybuilder, a mother, and a nutrition coach who has turned her personal journey of overcoming bullying, losing 60 kilos, and finding balance into a passion for helping others. In this episode, we'll hear how she's learned to stop listening to the noise around her, focus on her own growth, and build a life centered on confidence, health, and well-being. So get ready to be inspired as we dive into how self-education, fitness, and self-care can become the keys to unlocking your true potential.
About one of the main interesting things about me, and that's probably my cultural upbringing and my parents. So my dad is actually from Iraq, and he basically spent a lot of time in the military and was in the Iran-Iraq war and came to New Zealand and met my mum, who is a bit of a fruit salad. She's got a bit of European, bit of French, Samoan, and she's actually a descendant of Malietoa, the first king of Samoa. So,
oh, wow,
you know,
look at you, royal.
I know.
Cool.
So I guess being raised in quite a culturally diverse environment gave me that richness of being able to be exposed to the diverse cultures, but also created some challenges growing up too, in a sense that it's quite hard to find a sense of identity when you're kind of living amongst two entirely different cultures, and so that's probably something I really struggled with at the same time. But yeah, that's probably my interesting fact.
That is very interesting. I didn't realize I was sitting in the presence of royalty.
Oh, well, now you
Look
know.
at that. Here you go. And I think you pose an interesting point around diversity in New Zealand. I mean, there's two sides of the coin.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know, we're rich in diversity, which is pretty cool because we get to understand and learn how to work with different cultures, different people, different perspectives and beliefs.
Yeah.
But at the same time, who am I amongst all of that? And so there
Exactly.
can be a bit of confusion. But look, I've got you on this podcast because you have an awesome story. When the first way I found out about you was your social media. For some reason, you just popped up. It's like, oh, cool.
Hello.
So what I learned about you from your social media,
Yes.
because this is our first time meeting in person,
Yeah.
is you're a mum, you're a wife,
Mm-hmm.
you're a nurse who's also moved into a nurse educator.
Yes.
You have done bodybuilding. And you're also into not just bodybuilding, fitness, but also like helping people with nutrition, the nutrition side of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's an all-round superwoman right there. That's pretty cool. But anyway, I know behind all of that, you know, going back to the beginning and your upbringing, because I know there's a story there that's motivated you and inspired you to get into all these things. So for our listeners and our audience, can we maybe go back there? Because I know there's a story of struggle, bullying,
Yeah.
and how you overcame that, and also finding confidence in yourself.
Yeah. I think for me, it started from a very young age. I was essentially born a fat child. Like, I've been overweight since the day I was born, and was overweight through my whole childhood, into high school, into university, and into my adulthood. And it was a real struggle. The level of bullying was incredibly sad. It started from within my family, you know, like asking what's wrong with me, why are you fat, oh, you're still fat, you know, just comments like that are quite derogatory, but for someone to say, it's quite easy to say. But that sticks, and that stuck with me, and every comment that I ever sort of heard as a child stuck. And as each comment or insult got, you know, built upon, it just weighed me down more and more. And I was quite a socially awkward, withdrawn child. And I think a lot of that was due to to my self-confidence and the bullying that I had encountered growing up. Happened all through school. Once I hit sort of intermediate high school, it wasn't so bad, but I didn't fit in. I was different. And why was I different? I knew why I was different. I wasn't the skinny, pretty girl like all the other girls that were around. And I think that was probably the point where I had lost my self-confidence entirely. And I essentially hated myself. I didn't like who I was, to the point where I would have a shower and I would not turn the extractor fan on because I didn't want to see myself in the mirror, like to that level. And in my later years of high school, actually probably midway through high school, it got to a point where I was so depressed that I started to self-harm for a short while as just an emotional outlet for me, and I got help for that. I don't think I've ever actually told anyone about that, maybe a friend at the time, but I got help for that because I knew at that point something was seriously wrong with me mentally and emotionally. And yeah, I do remember being at a point where I think I was about 10 and I was at my grandma's, and I just broke down into tears and I said to my grandma, I'm sick of being fat and bullied. I'm going on a diet. And I went into her kitchen and I started peeling all these potatoes, and my grandma was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to eat vegetables for the rest of my life. So I boiled this big pot of potatoes and I said, we're having potatoes for dinner. And she was just like, you don't need to change. Like, your beauty is not external. Your beauty comes from within, and you're a kind and caring and beautiful child, and I will never forget those words. And I think that point there was probably one of the initial turning points for me. It didn't help the situation entirely, but it made me see things from a different perspective. And this was a pivotal point, but there were multiple pivotal points along the way that actually cumulatively got me to a point where I could see that this is not what it's about, and I can be better. And what people say and do to me is not any of my business. Only I can write my story. And so I did. I did a few other things. I finished high school, I went to university, and I got pregnant while I was at university. And I told myself, I made a promise to myself that I will finish university, whether I have this baby midway through placement or whatever happens, I'm having this baby and I'm finishing uni. And I did. I finished my last assignment or presentation. 2 weeks later, went into labour, had my baby, and then sat my state exams like 2 weeks after that. So it was all go. And then what happened? I got a job like 2 months later. And with this job, it's on a specific program, so you have to work full-time and study. So I went straight into that when my baby was only 2 months old. And again, I kind of felt like life was falling apart around me, and I wasn't keeping up with things. And my priority at the time was work, study, my child, and that's all. I lost complete control of myself. I gained a whole lot of weight, even more than I had. I think at my biggest I was 120 kilos. I actually stopped weighing myself at 118 because I knew it would be more than that and I couldn't face it anymore. And I also was in a space where I felt like I had failed as a mother with both my children because I couldn't deliver them naturally. I had to have C-sections, and then when it came to breastfeeding, I tried and tried and tried, and I could not breastfeed my children. So that was challenging for me as a mum to know that I couldn't give birth to my kids and I couldn't feed them. I couldn't give them what they needed to grow and thrive in this life. And mentally that hit me hard. And after my second daughter, I actually went into another sort of depressive state where just after having baby, I was like, what have I done? Like, why have I brought another child into the world when I can't even look after myself? I'm the way I am because I can't look after myself. And I've already failed as a mother once. I've failed as a mother again, C-section, couldn't breastfeed. But I'm so lucky that I had this village around me to help me raise my children, and I had such a supportive husband who is such a hands-on dad. And I think without them, I don't even think I would be here today. Like, honestly, it got so bad. I slowly started realizing things along that journey about myself and learning things about myself, what triggered me, what was hurtful, who was toxic, and who did I need to let go of. And I let go of those people. I got to a point where I basically had no friends because I didn't need them. They weren't helping me. And it was just me, my babies, my job, and my husband. And I lived that way for a long time, but I still wasn't quite finding myself. And one day I was just like, I'm sick of trying all these diets. I've done keto, I've done paleo, I've done starve yourself until you binge, I've done all the things. I ended up with quite severely disordered eating disorders. Again, mentally, that was not a great space to be in. And I was still fat. I was still overweight. Not as overweight as I had been. I'd made, I'd do the seesaw thing, go around in circles, lose some weight, gain some weight, lose some weight, gain some weight. And it was tiring, mentally exhausting. Until one day, my husband was a trainer at the gym I'm at now, actually at CrushFit, and they were doing a 12-week challenge. And I had heard about it. I wasn't a member or anything, and I was terrified because being a member of a gym, I had been a member of many gyms, and I would sit in the car for about an hour before getting into the gym every time because I was so scared of just what people would think of me. And so I signed up anyway, and I just thought, stuff it. Like, if I don't do something now, nothing will change. Like, nothing will ever change. I just need to get uncomfortable and do this. And so I did. I signed up, and it was the best decision of my life. The turning point there was the training and everything was great. The trainers were great. The whole program was amazing. But when we got our nutrition plans, which weren't done by the people running the challenge, they were done externally, I looked at the food and I knew I would starve. And I just had flashbacks of all the times I had been on these restrictive diets and starved and just gone in circles and ended up binging. And I was like, no, I can't go down this road again. I can't eat this food. And so that was the first time I had written my own nutrition plan for myself based on what I knew as a nurse. I know quite a lot about human physiology and all that sort of sciencey stuff. But I also did my own research and began studying about nutrition and learning all the things, and also learning through my own trial and error. And I did that, and I actually was one of the winners of that 12-week program. I had lost quite a bit of weight. I can't quite remember how much, but from there, the journey just kept on going for me, and I knew that it was going to be a long journey, and it needed to be a long and slow one because quick fixes only made things worse for me.
Can we pause there for a bit?
Yeah.
Because I'm really getting into the story.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think your story needs to be in a book or published. But because I feel like there's parts of your story I definitely want to go deeper in, because I feel like our listeners will definitely learn a lot from it. And then I want to carry on with the story.
Okay.
But I want to go back to your upbringing.
Yeah.
And as a kid, like, that's challenging. Like, to grow up in an environment like at home and at school where people are trying to point at your flaws or I guess it's bullying.
Yeah.
It's bullying. Calling someone fat, saying they're useless and this and that, that doesn't help in any way. Like, as a kid, that's like, imagine how, but as a parent, how has that upbringing and experience shaped you as a parent?
Yeah. That's a good one. I am very much into health and nutrition and, being a bodybuilder and all that sort of stuff. There's a huge focus on what I look like or what I weigh, but I'm adamant that we don't have those conversations around my children. We don't talk about the scales or how much I've lost or gained or, my muscles or anything like that. Like, I don't want them to view what I do as the only way of being or the only way of validating yourself. And so they know what I do, but I don't have those conversations around them. And my youngest daughter, she's actually recently started experiencing bullying at school, which I've cried about and I've been angry about. I've been to the school, I've marched into the principal's office, we've had conversations, and it breaks my heart, and it brings up all those memories from when I was a child. And I promised myself that I wouldn't let my kids go through this, and that I would be the mum that advocates for her children. And I will do that till the day I die. Like, you cannot let children go through that experience, because it really does have a lifelong impact. And so, yeah, that's probably something challenging that I'm dealing with at the moment. In terms of, I guess, the feelings and the views I had of myself as a mother quite early on in my motherhood, I've learned a lot about myself as a mum. And I know that not all mums mother the same. You know, I'm a full-time working, really busy mother, and so I'm not going to be as hands-on as a mum that, you know, chooses to stay home and look after and raise her children. And I think I beat myself up about that for a very long time, but I've learned that that's okay, and that I have my village. I have, you know, my mum and my mother-in-law have been pivotal in raising my children, and I've got a husband who is so hands-on, it's ridiculous. Like, they favour him over me. He's the cool parent, I'm the stink parent. Yeah, I do the telling off. He's just the fun guy, and I'm losing out. But I'm so grateful for the village that enable me to be the mum that I am. And I believe today that I am a good mum. I know I can do better. There's things I have done that I could have done differently. There's things I've done that I'm not proud of. But those are lessons for me and not for my children. And I can only teach them differently. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, especially as a parent, I can relate. I got children of my own, and, you know, you want the best for them. You kind of want to shelter them from the storm, but sometimes they do have to go through those challenges. And like you said, their challenges will be different to ours growing up.
Yeah.
But still, as a parent, you want to protect, and you never stop being a parent.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how old you get, even you're 60, 70,
Yeah.
I think you'll keep telling your kids off. My mum does anyway. But I really like that. I mean, look, you mentioned it takes a village to help raise a child, and it takes a village to help support a parent as well. I really like that, and I believe in that as well. Let's talk about that village and a child growing up in that village. You know what I mean by village. And I guess what are some advice that you could give around how that village, like the family, could help nurture that kid? Like, what's some positive language? How do you develop a positive mindset? How to help a kid build more self-confidence?
Yeah.
What do you think are things that a parent or village could do?
Yeah. Well, I think I'll use my children as examples, because they're both very similar, but they're also very different. And my oldest child she's very capable of doing things, and she's very good at the things she does do, but she's very adamant about doing things quietly or not giving things a try. Whereas my younger child, she will do whatever you tell her to do. She is so confident that it's borderline arrogant sometimes. I just can't deal with her half the time.
She a teenager?
No, she's 7.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, she is the light of my life, but also like, she will be the death of me one day. But in raising those two children, what the village need to know is how to bring out their qualities. So my youngest child, she is confident, she is sassy, and sometimes that can come across as her being a bit rude or a bit naughty, but no, she's not. This is how she expresses herself. This is how she is who she is. And I would hate for anyone to shut that down. And I don't. I just deal with it. I'm like, okay, you go, girl. Whatever you say. Like, if you're that confident, you rock it. And I never want to break that confidence that she has, because that is confidence that I wish I had as a child. And that is confidence that I know I didn't have. So I do not want her to ever lose that. And she will lose it. In today's society, there are so many societal pressures around that break people down, and it's inevitable that some of that will get lost. So while she's got it, I want the village to let her rock it. Like, you know, use it as her strength. And then when it comes to my older daughter, she needs that coaching. She needs that encouragement. She needs that support, and she needs someone to give her that confidence booster, and then the confidence comes through. So there's not one way to raise a child, and I think everyone needs to understand that. And again, societal pressures, you should do this to raise your children. You know, this is how you should raise your kids. You need to raise your kids to do this. No, you need to raise your kids the way they need to be raised, and only they can determine that. They will show you what they need. They will show you their qualities, and it's your job to grow that, not to shut it down or not to change who they are, but to allow them to grow into who they are.
I love that. Well, what you're basically saying, what I'm getting from it is, it's the opposite of what happened to you growing up.
Yeah.
Instead of highlighting flaws, highlight the strengths.
Absolutely.
The great things about them. This takes me back to an experience. I ran a workshop. They had like a boot camp, and they had all the providers come there. And it was high-risk youth. So youth who are not fitting in school and not fitting in work either. They're just stuck because of challenges and things they've done. But anyway, I ran this workshop around discovering your strengths.
Yeah.
And I was surprised at how many of them were just engaged, involved. But I'll never forget this experience. There was this one girl who just started crying.
Oh.
And I was like, whoa, what happened? Well, you know, then all the mentors and all that coming over, like, what's going on here? And anyway, basically, as we unpacked it, she goes, the reason why she was crying, as we did this activity, because I was taking them through, like, what are you good at? Okay, cool. And then she wrote down listening was one of her key strengths. And she just started bawling. And she said, look, my whole life I've grown up thinking I was useless. People told me I was useless. I had a baby when I was really young. My brother who took his life when he was a young kid. And I felt like I was useless. I could have saved them or helped them, you know. Just my whole life thinking I was useless. But I am good at something.
Yeah.
I am great at something.
Yeah.
You know? So you imagine the kind of confidence and what that did for her. You know, she grew up her whole life being told she's useless or believing she was useless. But all she needed was someone saying, like, look, you're awesome at this thing.
Yeah.
I see potential in you. I believe in you. Like, that kid's going to grow up and do amazing things.
Yeah.
You know, but I definitely believe that, coming back to what you said, you know, highlighting the strengths and complimenting them.
Yeah.
And supporting them in a way to use those strengths to produce positive results as well. Be like, look at what you did because of that. That's amazing. But I want to come back to your story. Growing up, going from the struggle, going from pain to now discovering purpose, more purpose and meaning in your life, because now you're in a space where you're giving back.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want people to experience what you went through. You want to help them to achieve their potential, both mentally, physically, emotionally, every way possible.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about that. So if we're coming back to your story, the whole nutrition and becoming a trainer and a nurse, let's go back there.
Yeah. Well, where do I start? When it came to the nutrition side of things, like I said earlier, I did a whole lot of self-study, and then I did some actual study around nutrition, and I realised that this was all knowledge that I wish I knew 10, 15 years ago, so that I had the autonomy to take control of my nutrition and my health and my well-being. And I wish I knew that it was going to be a slow process. It needs to be a slow process in order for it to be a healthy process. And I learned all that in this next part of the journey. And as I started learning things, I kind of just felt like I know there are so many people out there that are going through what I have been through, or similar journeys, or maybe entirely different, but having this knowledge would actually really help them. And so I decided to start my own little thing on the side. It wasn't, you know, my main gig or anything like that, but I just wanted to start helping people, and so I did. But my point of difference was that I'm not just there to give you a plan. I'm not just there to cookie cut stuff for you, enter in some numbers and say this is how much of a deficit you need to be in, eat this. I really wanted to teach people about how important nutrition is and the amazing things that it can do. And it's been a slow journey. It's not something I've pushed, and the reason for that is because I take a really relational approach. Like, I like to understand people's stories because I have my story and I want to know their story. And I want to work out where I fit in that story. And I can read the room. If someone's coming to me because they want to lose 5 kilos in 8 weeks and they don't want to do anything else other than that, I'm like, sweet, okay. But if I've got someone that comes to me with all this baggage, all of this hurt, and not knowing where to go, I'm going to take that time that they need and I'm going to help them, and we're going to pivot. The goal's not going to change. They will have goals in their mind. I'm not going to change their goals, but we're going to pivot the strategy and set some other little goals along the way. And set some realistic expectations. This isn't going to happen overnight. This isn't going to happen in 3, 6, 9 months. This is a life journey. And that's where I wanted to go with the nutrition side of things. And then, because now I'm in Body Hub with Body Hub Athletic, which is the business I have with Leighton. And how that all came about was, so he was in the military and essentially COVID happened. He also got cancer and he didn't get the vaccine, and so he left the military. And then he started his career as a personal trainer. And so he was doing training stuff on the side. And so we were both kind of working separately for a long while. And then I had clients who, you know, they'd kind of mastered the nutrition and health side of things, and they're at a point where actually I want to start incorporating some training, but some training that's actually relevant to me and my goals and by someone who knows me. So I'm not a personal trainer, and I decided to link up with Leighton, and we work really well together, and the services that we both offer and the way that we deliver it is very different, but it's collaborative, and I think it works really well for the clients that we have currently. And so that was always my goal, just to help people. It wasn't to become rich off this. It wasn't to make a whole lot of money. Like, I still work my nursing job. I love my nursing job. That's my passion. And I imagine I'm going to be in it for the rest of my life. But I love helping people as a nurse. I also want to help people outside of, you know, the hospital as well, and help people that are experiencing things that I've experienced that I know are not nice. And to think that I got to a point where I would have ended my life at one stage, to know that I could prevent that for someone else. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's very powerful. And I guess it does help if you've kind of gone through it yourself. It's been tough, so you can have empathy. You can sympathize with people.
Yeah.
And they can feel that. And I love that your approach is, I want to know your story. And you're right, people come with all this package. It goes back to your example around sitting in the car park for an hour before going into the gym. Like, those are probably people you're helping. Like, that's their point in life. You've been there before. So you can kind of help them through, right? So it's more than just a physical thing. It's an emotional and mental thing. So I want to talk about that mental thing around self-doubt, around lack of confidence. Like, I think it pops up for a lot of people. For some people more than normal. Right, but it happens. Yes. So, but the question is, when it does happen, how do you navigate through that? So I'm keen to hear your thoughts and tips around that. Like, people who might be struggling with the mindset, self-confidence. What's some advice around dealing with that?
Yeah. The first thing for me is I've learned to not worry or stress or doubt the things that are out of my control. If I can't do anything to control a certain situation, or I can't control what the outcome is going to be, I'm not going to doubt it or worry about it or put my energy into it. I'm just going to focus on what I can control. And what I can control, I need to have a strategy around that and how I'm going to control that. When I have a good strategy, there's minimal self-doubt, and it stops it kind of coming in. And I try to get to a point where, well, I guess I want to avoid getting to a point where I've allowed that doubt to creep in. So how do you prevent self-doubt to begin with? How do you prevent that feeling of not being confident in your ability whatsoever? And the biggest piece of advice I would have is to not make yourself promises that you can't keep, to not commit to things that you can't keep. And like, an example of that is, do you trust someone? Do you have confidence in someone who says they'll do stuff for you, who says they'll deliver, who says or promises things and never delivers? Do you have confidence in them? Do you believe in them? Absolutely not. So don't go and promise yourself that tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to eat healthy, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to drink 3 litres, I'm going to sleep 8 hours, and I'm going to live the healthiest life ever for the rest of my life. Because that is so unrealistic. And if you set yourself that promise and you break it, you've just broken your self-confidence a little bit more. So what I encourage people to do is set really small, realistic targets and promise yourself little things. Like for me, my promise to myself is that every day I'm going to get up and move. Every day. There's like a rest day, I might walk, but I'm going to move. And I do. Every day I get up, I go to the gym. I don't care how I feel. I could have had 2 hours sleep. I could be sick. I'm going to get up and move. And the fact that I have kept that promise for probably 2-3 years now, like I have that confidence in myself that I can move. I can do, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to do this thing. And I know I can do it because I've done it every day for the last 2 or 3 years. But if I promised myself that you promise yourself ridiculous things and you can't achieve them, and then you're like, oh, well, I'm useless. I didn't do it. I've broken that promise to myself. I can't trust myself. I can't trust that I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. So that would probably be the biggest thing for me. The promises you make to yourself need to be realistic and achievable and sustainable.
I love that. I love that because it's keeping a promise. It's a promise that you make, but it almost becomes a standard that you set for your life.
Yeah.
Like you wake up, like your mindset triggers, I'm going to move. And then you do that so often that it just becomes a habit. And it's just a natural expectation. It's just part of life.
Yeah.
It's what I do every day. I also understand that, going to the gym, exercising, but you also mentioned health and what you eat, what you put in your body.
Yeah.
Is important. Can you maybe talk about the importance of that?
Yeah.
Like the importance of nutrition. People, when they hear the word nutrition, it can be quite a bit of a put off. So maybe break it down a little bit and simplify it for us. Like, when we're talking about nutrition, we're talking about the types of food. What are good food that's good for the mind, good for the soul type of thing?
I wouldn't necessarily say that there's such thing as a bad food, and I'm sure we've all heard this, but it's about portions and moderation. So I don't tell people you can't have this. I mean, unless they're prepping for a competition, then I'm like, absolutely not. You cannot have that chocolate. But, most of my clients are on lifestyle plans. So we're trying to build up something that can be a lifestyle, something that they can stick to for the rest of their life. And so while I do highlight the key nutritional foods and the benefits of certain types of foods, I don't steer them away from having the things that they want to enjoy every now and then. We just look at how could that be made slightly better, or what's a better option. And if there is no better option, eat the chocolate. Just, get back on plan after that. But it's really important that people understand your macronutrients and your micronutrients. So you've obviously got your protein, carbs, fats. Alcohol is also your fourth macronutrient, which we don't talk about often enough, but it is a macronutrient. Contains roughly 7 to 8 calories per gram of alcohol, and people kind of just forget about that and brush it to the side. I'm on this plan, but I'm drinking this much alcohol. So I talk a lot about that too, and I talk about the effects that certain substances can have on your body. Some people out there do recreational drugs, and I encourage my clients to be quite open with me, and they will tell me these things, and we look at that as well. How is that impacting your health? Not just from a nutrition side of things, but overall. And so understanding your macros, understanding the impact of other substances, smoking, vaping, all the things, but also understanding your micronutrients, so your vitamins, your minerals, and where you can get those certain foods from. Certain micronutrients from, because they are what contribute to your intracellular health. And that is what is important, your internal health. Yes, protein's great for muscles, but it's also great for every other cellular function in your body, and without protein you cannot function or survive. That is a big thing I'm big on. Protein equals muscles, cool, but no. It equals so many other things. It equals the being that you are. Your body is protein. Your functions thrive off protein. Without protein you will die. So having the right type of protein is important. Balancing those amino acids, making sure you're getting all the different types of amino acids and not just living off protein bars and protein powder. When it comes to carbs, the different types of carbs, and actually paying attention to how certain types of carbohydrates make you feel. I've got one client who, she preferred to have rice for her lunch every day, but she would always be hungry by 2 p.m. And I'll be like, you need to change your carb, man. She's like, no, I just need more food. I'm like, no, you need to change the carb. And so she finally was like, fine, I'll try it for a week. So we changed her from rice to kumara. Same amount, same number of calories. And she was like, she texts me and she's like, it's 5 p.m. and I'm not even hungry.
Wow.
So I'm just like, thank you for listening. But even just understanding how different food groups can influence your body, your energy levels, how you think and function is really important. And that's what I encourage people to pay attention to. Not the calories, not the I've had this much protein and this many carbs, but actually what is the quality of that protein? What is that doing for you internally? What is the quality of those carbs and when are you eating them? Are you eating before your training? Are you having them after your training? Like, are you fueling your body effectively so that you can perform at your best? And that is the goal. Performance, health, internally mostly. And I've seen amazing changes. I've had clients who have come off their diabetic medication, their blood pressure medication, who are no longer pre-diabetic, who have had irregular periods for most of their life and suddenly have a regular 28-day cycle. Like, it's those things that make me so incredibly grateful to be able to do what I do. And, I mean, Leighton's the same. He's had clients that he's completely changed their lives. And we just sit there like, oh my God, like we helped that. We didn't do that because we didn't do the work. The person has done the work. We have just given them the tools, the knowledge, the education, like I wish I had, to be able to do that. And that's what it's about. Yeah.
I love that. That's so cool. I mean, that could be another podcast, just breaking down nutrition, when to eat, healthy habits. I love that.
Yeah.
Part 2. But I really like that story. And what's made me think, I'm quite curious, if you don't mind sharing, because you're juggling a full-time job.
Well, 4 days a week.
Well, 4 days a week,
Yeah.
it's still a job.
Yeah.
And it's not just the amount of time, it's the amount of mind and energy and effort you put into that as well.
Yeah.
Right? Then you're doing this nutrition stuff, the fitness stuff, the thing with your husband, and then you've got a family. Now, people are like, how do I fit all of this? I've got to work a job, I've got to do this. I got no fuel in the tank left at the end of the day to look after me.
Yeah.
I'm just going to rest and then rinse and repeat the next day.
Yeah.
So I guess like talking to that, and maybe don't be shy, maybe give an example of how you do it.
Yeah.
But that also inspires other people that they can do it as well.
I will say I've definitely had points where I've overworked myself and I've experienced burnout. And I mean, there'll be people out there that don't believe in burnout, but burnout is a real thing. And you need to understand first and foremost what your capacity is and what you have capacity to do and achieve without diluting the quality of what you're trying to achieve. So I don't want to go to work tired. I don't want to go and look after children that are sick and dying, or have to try and save a life while I'm on a half-empty tank. I can't do that. I can't afford to do that. And that's not fair on my team. That's not fair on the children and the whānau that we look after. So I refuse to do that. I'm not putting anybody in any danger. And so I need to prioritise that. I need to understand what my capacity is in terms of my client load. And that's not a set number. It really depends on what each client's needs are. And if I'm at capacity, that's it. Like, I'm not going to keep taking on clients because I know I won't be able to deliver without diluting the quality of which I deliver. And then my children, like, it would be quite easy for me to take on more clients, for me to take on more days at work, or for me to bring work home, which I have done. I was previously in a position where I was doing that, and I resigned from that role because I was neglecting my family, essentially, and I needed to commit to my family at that point in time. And I recognised that, and I left the role I was in, which was quite a high up leadership and management role, really good money. And I was like, no, I can't. So I'm in this role now as a nurse educator, which I love and I'm really passionate about, and I still get to work with children and whānau and save lives. Like, there'll be days I come home and I'm so empty, like drained from work because, we've had a resus where a child's nearly died, and, you're comforting the family and you're teaching nurses and trying to upskill and encourage them and prove to them that they are amazing nurses. They've got the skills. They can do this. And then things like that, what they witness and what we're involved in, terrifies them and knocks the confidence out of them. So again, I'm doing it with my team. I'm trying to build them up and build up their confidence and showing them Here's the tools you need. This is the education. You can do this. And then coming home to my kids, like, I need to have the energy and the capacity for them. They are not the rubbish bin that gets whatever's left of me. No. So we have really good routine in our household. We know who's dropping who off at where and who's picking who up and what time, and we've got before school care and after school care routines sorted. Weekends we've got sorted. We make sure we always do something with the kids on the weekend, and we involve them in our work. Like, if my older daughter's started doing our invoicing, it's great.
Wow.
It's a great time.
How old is she?
She's 11.
And she's doing invoicing?
Yeah.
Oh my
So we've taught her how to invoice, and she just sits there while we're working away, and she's asking about this person and that person, and is this due? And I'm like, yeah, go for it, sweetie. It's great. So, yeah, we get them involved and make it a real family affair, you know, and have conversations about our dinner and the food that we're eating, and talk about our day. And I don't want to take away from that. So understanding your capacity without diluting the quality is really important. It's an important starting place. And then getting rid of anything else that adds no value whatsoever to your life, whether that is certain people in your life that consume your time and energy but actually don't deserve it, or don't, you know, are contributing nothing to your well-being. Remove them. You don't need them. And that might sound harsh, but it's the reality. Yeah. And distractions. Like, how long do we all spend on social media? Honestly, like, I'm working on it. I'm doing better. But social media, my goodness, the amount of time people spend on it is insane. And that is time you could spend, you know, strategizing for your business, going to the gym, cooking up a meal, spending time with your kids. And I'm not perfect, no way. Like, I'm still working on that. That is something I've not nailed yet. But yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Love that. So there's a lot there. And
I could keep on going, but I
mean, there's a lot there that our listeners can take away from this. Yeah. A lot of value. You know, making sure that you show up your best self. You know, try to for every place aspect of your life, family, work, and other things. Having good routine. Looking at your capacity. And, you know, in terms of capacity, looking at your time and how much energy you have, listening to your body, you know, if you need a rest. Yeah. Right? And just getting that support in the family, because like you said, like you've mentioned your husband a lot, many times. And it's like, you know, sometimes it's that partnership, that teamwork is like, I'm 50% today, I might need your 90% to help out, and it's vice versa. So you're never 100% every day, and just watching out for that burnout. And I'd like to invite you again on this podcast, because I'd love to learn a little bit more around your passion in nursing. Yeah. Because I feel like there's a lot there as well, but that's another podcast. Yes. So I'd love to invite you back onto the show for that. But again, like, it's been so cool to just hear your story, hear some of the struggle, and, you know, you're vulnerable, you're straight to the truth, you know, you're open about it. Thank you for sharing it with us. And then also, it's just very inspiring to see you on this side here and doing amazing things, not just for yourself, but also for other people. You're changing other people's lives. So thank you for being a role model and inspiration to all, and thank you for sharing your story. Thank you to you and your family for what you do for the community. If there's one big takeaway that you want our listeners to take from our conversation, what would that be?
It's never too late to rewrite your story. That's probably what I would say. You can always rewrite it. And even now, I am still rewriting my story.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's never too late to rewrite your story. It's not the end. It's not the end.
There is no end.
There is no end.
Journey. Yeah.
I love it. Beautiful. That's some perspective. So thank you for sharing that, and just, again, being generous with your time and your experience, your expertise. We're much better for it. Ree Khamis, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.